Welcome to this explainer. Today we're traveling to the seaside town of Margate, over in Kent, to explore one of England's most curious hidden gems. We're looking at a structure that has totally baffled historians, archaeologists, and locals for nearly 2 centuries. It's a place where agricultural practicality collides head-on with eccentric artistry, leaving us with one massive, echoing question mark. Let's get right into it. Just imagine descending beneath a totally normal, everyday seaside town and suddenly finding yourself in a golden, glittering subterranean maze. You're walking through archways that are completely encrusted with intricate patterns, but you have absolutely no idea who built them or why. Now, this isn't a movie set. This is the Margate Shell Grotto. It sits right beneath urban housing and everyday gardens, completely hidden from the world above. The sheer scale of this place is breathtaking, but honestly, it's the mystery of its origins that's going to really capture your imagination. Section 1. The Accidental Underground Discovery. So to really understand this enigma, we first have to go back to how this subterranean wonder was actually unearthed. And the story starts in 1835, all because of a lost tool. According to the accounts, a capstone got disturbed and a spade dropped down into a dark void. Naturally, to get it back, a small boy, the son of the local schoolmaster, James Newlove, was tied to a rope and literally lowered into the abyss. Gotta love 19th century parenting, right? Anyway, what he found down there changed Margate's history forever. By 1837, Newlove bought the land, modified the entrance, and opened the grotto up as a tourist attraction, using naked gas flames to light up those dark tunnels. Fast forward a bit, and by 1932, electric lighting replaced those soot-producing flames, and finally, in 1973, the site's significance was officially recognized when it became a highly protected Grade 1 listed building. Section 2. Anatomy of the Grotto. Okay, let's take a virtual walkthrough of this layout because it isn't just one room, it's an entire subterranean complex. Visitors actually start in a really cramped entrance passage, which is rough-hewn directly out of the soft chalk. This is the only section of the grotto that's unlined and completely bare. Now, early accounts suggest this tunnel was originally only about 4 feet high, meaning the original discoverers literally had to crawl or stoop way down just to get through. But as you walk down this dark, curving path, it suddenly winds down into a circular space known as the rotunda, and that is where the incredible decoration begins. Just past the rotunda, you reach the dome. This is essentially a vertical shaft stretching about 4 meters up to the surface, and it acts as a skylight piercing right through that subterranean darkness. If you look straight up, you see these meticulous, concentric rings of shells lining the entire shaft, which culminates in a small aperture that's completely open to the sky. It's an absolute architectural marvel, especially when you remember it's entirely underground. From the dome, you weave your way through the beautifully arched S-shaped serpentine passage, and that leads you right into the grand finale of the grotto, the rectangular altar chamber. Here, the wild, curving mosaics actually give way to much more formal, geometric panels. The focal point of this entire room is a curved niche on the wall, which early observers quickly dubbed the altar. Section 3. Millions of local shells. But the architecture, as fascinating as it is, isn't the real star of the show. It's the mesmerizing medium covering almost every single inch of those walls. The really crucial point here is the staggering volume of the decoration. We are talking about roughly 4.6 million individual shells, meticulously covering 2,000 square feet of underground surface area. Just take a second to think about the sheer human labor required for that. I mean, this wasn't just some weekend DIY project. This was a monumental undertaking that involved sorting, cleaning, designing, and applying millions of delicate pieces entirely by hand. And whoever designed this wasn't haphazardly throwing shells at wet plaster either. They created highly intricate, incredibly specific motifs. You'll notice prominent sun and star shapes woven deeply into the design. The patterns are clearly deliberate, but they're just ambiguous enough to completely defy any single easy interpretation. The sourcing of these shells tells an amazing logistical story all on its own. The builders largely utilized local Kent beaches, like Pegwell Bay and Sandwich Bay, gathering local mussels, cockles, whelks, and oysters for their main designs. But here's the catch. They actually had to import flat winkles from out west, near Southampton, just to fill in the background of the mosaics. The local beaches simply didn't have enough of them. That indicates some really dedicated planning, trade, and travel specifically to finish this underground space. Section 4. Cults, Follies, and Phoenicians. Because the patterns down there are so incredibly ambiguous,
They've basically served as a blank canvas for almost 2 centuries of wild speculation. We human beings absolutely hate a vacuum of information, so naturally, we filled it with theories. Depending on who you ask, the grotto is, well, anything and everything. Back in 1952, someone linked it to Bronze Age Minoan art. In the 1940s, a book claimed it was an ancient Phoenician temple. Some researchers have even measured the angles of sunlight projecting through the dome to suggest it's a 12th century Knights Templar solar calendar. Others look at that altar and the geometric designs and see a secret Freemasonry ritual space. And then there's the simplest theory of all, that it's merely an 18th or 19th century rich man's folly, built just for the fun of it.
Section 5. The Chalk Mine Theory. But to find the most grounded truth, we really have to strip away the romance of the shells and look purely at the physical excavation itself. We have to look at the site not as a temple, but simply as a hole dug into the earth. In 2005, an archaeological assessment by researcher R.F. Laguerre provided a really fascinating, highly practical explanation. He likened the foundational structure of the grotto to a Dean hole. Now, a Dean hole is just a small, pragmatic chalk mine, often dating back to medieval times. Farmers would dig a narrow central shaft and then tunnel outwards at the bottom to harvest unpolluted chalk, which they'd spread on their land as an agricultural fertilizer. By examining the physical space, experts mapped out a highly logical evolution here. Step 1. Medieval miners dig that initial narrow shaft, which is now the dome, and 3 short headings. Step 2. Post-17th century, the tunnels are extended. And we know this because the lengths of the newer passages exceed the friction limit of hauling ropes from the central shaft, meaning they had to have started using wheelbarrows to move the chalk. Step 3. The builders carve arched roofs. This wasn't for Gothic aesthetics, by the way. It was a strict structural necessity for safety in the loose Kent chalk. And finally, Step 4. The elaborate shell decoration is applied, likely in the 17th or 18th century, which completely transformed an abandoned industrial mine into an absolute artistic masterpiece. This perfectly juxtaposes the two sides of the grotto's identity. On one hand, we have the enchanting pursuit of hidden mystical wisdom, the Templars, the Freemasons, the ancient civilizations. On the other hand, we have the physical, archaeological reality, a highly pragmatic medieval chalk mine extended by wheelbarrows just to get agricultural fertilizer. But what makes this site so incredible is that the pragmatic reality doesn't diminish the magic at all. Someone still had to go down into that abandoned mine and dedicate unimaginable hours to covering it in millions of shells.
Section 6. An enduring subterranean mystery. And that brings us to the ultimate paradox of the Margate Shell Grotto. Even with expert archaeological insight giving us the how the hole was dug, how the tunnels were supported, the question of the why remains entirely elusive. As researcher R.F. Laguerre beautifully noted, whoever originally designed this space achieved ultimate success. If their goal was to create a puzzle that would keep us guessing, arguing, and marveling for nearly 200 years, well, they succeeded brilliantly. The ambiguity isn't an accident. It is the masterpiece itself. So, what do you think? After looking at the sheer effort, the imported shells, and those medieval chalk mine foundations, where do you land? Is this a sacred temple hiding in plain sight right beneath the streets of an English seaside town? Or is it simply the most beautifully, obsessively decorated agricultural chalk mine in human history? The walls certainly aren't talking, so this mystery is entirely yours to solve. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.